Good morning. Welcome to the Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Carter,
Present.
DeLong,
Present.
De Silva,
Here.
Edgeworth, Flanagan,
Here.
Gallant,
Here.
Goulding,
Here.
Gurr, Hunt,
Here.
Jackson, Karras,
Here.
Kasama, Wynn,
Here.
Chair Considine.
Present. Please mark Assemblymember Kasama absent excused. Welcome to the audience in Carson City, those joining by video conference in Las Vegas, and those listening over the internet. We'll start with a few housekeeping measures. First, please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and any affiliation for the record. Turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. If providing handouts, please ensure that hard copies are available for members of the public. Electronic copies should have been submitted to our committee manager by 9 a.m. yesterday for committee members. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we disagree with someone else's position. I encourage committee members to ask questions and engage with the material presented. I do request if you have a couple of follow-up questions, please flag them for me so that I can make sure we balance out our time and our questions throughout the meeting. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not interpret this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. With that, let's get started. Today, we're going to hear two presentations, and we will start with a presentation on the Nevada Association of Counties, NACO, followed by a presentation from Washoe County. Our first presentation is from Vincent Guthrow, Executive Director of NACO, who will discuss work and operations. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you so much. For the record, my name is Vincent Guthrow. My last name is spelled Guthreau, and my first name is Vincent. It's Vinson. Really thank you and the committee for the invitation this morning. Happy to talk about NACO always, but I promise you I have a couple of things of good news. One, I do not have a PowerPoint, so I'll be speaking at you for a while, so feel free to ask questions when the chair allows. As I mentioned, my name is Vincent Guthrow. I have the honor of serving as the executive director of NACO, the Nevada Association of Counties. I'm entering my fourth year as the executive director of this organization, and I've been with the association for about 8 years. Appreciate the opportunity to share some information with you. I do plan on touching on a few things. I know some of you may have heard a similar presentation if you were on the committee in the last session or at the part of the new legislator training. I touched on a few of these things during that, so I'm sorry for the repeat, but appreciate being here. So I just want to touch on a little overview of NACO so you understand sort of who we are. Talk a little bit about our counties across the state, talk about some of the services that we deliver and how we fund those services, and then of course how we interact with all of you and ways that we can support you and be a resource to all of you. We interact with this committee quite a bit. Mostly you'll see NACO's government affairs manager in here. She's sitting over here to my right. Her name is Jennifer Bethune, and will, like I said, be a resource for you as you talk about your communities, and you know, we have a shared constituency at counties for the state, and we look to partner on some of those things. So a little overview about NACO. We are governed by a 23-member board. Every county in Nevada is a member, and every county has at least one seat on our board. We had a few for other engagement with NACO. We're currently led by our president. It's Elko County Commissioner Delmo Antriosi. We have an executive committee that includes and reflects our counties across the state. We have Commissioner Gardner from Douglas County. Our vice president is Commissioner Andriola from Washoe County. We have an at-large member, Commissioner Kirkpatrick from Clark County, and our past president is Supervisor Giomi from Carson City. We also, on our board, have non-voting seats of the other elected officials. So those are your county clerks, which in the rurals are the are the elections officials, but also recorders and treasurers, among others, have non-voting seats on our board, and we engage them throughout session as well. The Nevada Association of Counties, established in NRS. We recently celebrated our 100-year anniversary. We were established in 1924, and we celebrated a theme called A Century of Service. We are the collective county voice for all counties. And one of the things that we did as part of that looked to preparing the association and making sure that we were doing all the things that we could do for our members. One of the ways that we'll interact with this body is that the NACO Board of Directors stood up a new position called the NACO Health and Human Services Manager. Every county in Nevada does human services, and our members, I think, have been asking for support in that area for a long time for so those of you who are on health and human services may see our manager in that end. Some brief facts about counties. I think our counties reflect the diversity and uniqueness of our state. We have everything from Esmeralda County, which sees a population of less than 1,000, up to Clark County, which is 2.3 million. There's about 1 million residents in the unincorporated area alone in Clark County. Every Nevada resident is a county resident, so we have a shared constituency here. One of the things I wanted to sort of direct your attention to, we submitted this to the committee. It's again not inclusive, but I thought a good summary of sort of what counties do would be good for the committee members, especially some of you who are serving on this committee for the first time. I think our counties are changing. We used to be sort of 15 distinct rural counties with 2 urban counties. I think we have some suburban counties mixed in there. Some of the growth in Lyon County and Churchill and Humboldt up here in the north, I think, reflects some of the dynamics of our county. A couple of other facts: every county in Nevada has public lands. 13 of our 17 counties have at least 75% federal land ownership. That impacts a lot of the service delivery. Even Clark County has public lands, so we navigate that in a way. Some changing industries for Nevada. As you know, we have sports teams. We're a booming technology hub, I think, and a center for innovation up here in northern Nevada. We're still a world-class tourist attraction, and we're, of course, a big part of the new economy sort of through that lithium loop. So that's a little overview of counties. So what do counties do? Well, one of the things is that counties deliver both regional and municipal services. As you know, they deliver those services in the unincorporated area. The Las Vegas Strip is an example of that. Carson City is an example of that. They're the only consolidated municipality in the state. Also urban Washoe County and even in Pahrump and Nye County. We have a litany of mandated services that the county provides. We are the social safety net. We provide services for the unhoused. We do provide indigent care, first responders. I think we're still talking about it, but I think the response to COVID indicated sort of that local initial frontline response on public health is at the local level. And I know that this is not a fiscal committee, but a lot of the ways that we interact with each other is on the state budget. The counties are responsible for a pretty significant of the non-federal share of the Medicaid budget here in Nevada. That's done through county assessments, through voluntary Medicaid contracts, and like I said, it's a large portion of the non-federal share of Medicaid. Counties also fund indigent defense. We also provide senior services. We administer the elections process. It's also criminal justice. We run the courts and jails. We also do other things like code enforcement, planning and zoning, land use, and of course counties run. There's county infrastructure. In fact, the Harry Reid International Airport is actually under the Clark County Department of Aviation. So as you can see, it's not comprehensive, but that's a big part of all the things that counties do. I just want to talk a little bit about how we fund those services, this large breadth of services that I think our folks and our residents come to rely on day to day. Primary sources of revenue include property tax. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, property tax. It is capped, statutorily. We also have a depreciation issue, but it is a large source of revenue for counties. Usually the number 1 or number 2 revenue source. The consolidated tax, which includes sales tax, is also a large funder. We also, some of our counties see a form of property tax through the net proceeds of minerals. It's a property tax for mining operations. There is a local distribution in that formula that goes to local governments. Also, there's another large source of revenue is the payment in lieu of taxes program. It doesn't quite fund what we would do if we had, if that was under local, ownership or oversight, but the payment in lieu of taxes provides some revenue for federal lands that cannot be taxed. And then one of the things I'll mention about our sources of revenue and sort of how local governments view property tax versus the consolidated tax or sales tax. We see sales tax as a more volatile source of revenue. It is subject to big swings based on how the economy is doing, maybe public health emergencies or other impacts to that revenue source. Tends to provide larger swings, larger downturns in a more significant way. Property tax tends to be more stable and is a much more reliable source of revenue for us. I also need to mention that one of the things that is a good reminder for all of you is that counties do not have fiscal home rule in this state, and what I mean by that is that they are not able to raise their own revenue. Counties are only allowed to raise or utilize revenue sources that this body approves. And there are a number of those out there, whether it's, diesel tax passed in the 2019 session for rural counties that enabled some of that, or, there's other infrastructure taxes out there. So it's really around what this body allows local governments to raise. Couple of ways that we interact, as I mentioned, a big way that we interact is through the state budget. And I want to mention a little bit about timelines around the state budget. We are statutorily required to submit preliminary budgets in April. And as you know, you're all still here in April. So my request is that if there are operational or fiscal impacts to county governments, to please engage us early and often in those discussions. We'll probably do the same. You'll hear from either myself or individual counties on some of those impacts. Operational impacts can have a fiscal impact. And really, we're happy to provide input on the impacts of any of those decisions. And really, I think the ask, at least the position of the NACO board, has always been just a corresponding revenue source to go along with any new expansion of services. Let's see. So the other... So, like I said, I know this is not a fiscal committee, but that is a huge way that we interact. I want to touch a little bit on and just sort of wrap up here, and I'll be happy to take questions, Chair, if that works for you. But one of the other ways that we interact is that the NACO receives up to 5 bill draft requests per legislative session. We have submitted 4 this year. One will come to this committee. It is Assembly Bill 14, and it's really a streamlining around a qualified elector and bringing some consistency to law. I don't want to dive too deep into it because you'll have a full bill hearing on it, I believe, coming up very soon. So that's a way that you'll see us, and that's a way that we'll probably engage you in conversations outside committee, is around our bill drafts. I will say you're going to hear from Washoe County today, which is a NACO member, and I believe Clark County next week, and they'll really be able to give you sort of a community level perspective on some of the things and some of the services that they provide, and some of the top priorities of their commissions. With that, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions. I hope everyone is still awake, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to, a quick request. If you could send your contact information to all of the members so that if they do have questions, they can reach out to you directly.
Absolutely. Thank you for that suggestion. Will do.
And then, committee, any questions? Assembly Member Gallant.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I'm curious, you made a comment about the depreciation issue with property taxes. Do you mind, or can you opine on that a little bit further?
For the record, Vincent Guthrow, Executive Director of NACO. Yeah, it can a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit complicated, but really it means that the amount of the value of the property when it's assessed it depreciates in value over time. We're the only state that does not reset that on sale. And so, it impacts property tax bills, I guess is what I would say. that's really the quick summary. Happy to provide. We have sort of a fact sheet on that, but that's sort of the gist of it. Okay, you bet. Mhm.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gallant. Our next question is from Assemblymember De Silva.
Mr. Guthrow, thank you for your presentation and good seeing you again. Just a quick question about Medicaid and how it's distributed, the services and the actual funds are distributed out through the county. If you could just go a little bit deeper into that.
Yes, for the record, Vincent Guthrow, Executive Director of NACO. So we fund a portion of counties fund a portion of the Medicaid budget through voluntary contracts that are, so basically you agree to an assessment. All 17 counties have to agree, we sign the contract. I think we work on those pretty extensively with the state, and then it basically it funds a portion of the non-federal share. Not to get too much into details for a non-fiscal committee, but then the state then uses the money that locals are assessed, and they pull down additional federal dollars for the Medicaid to fund Medicaid here in the state. That's a summary. Happy to talk more offline. Again, with this not being a fiscal committee, it gets a little complicated, but that's sort of how that works. That is a complicated, robust program that I know they're having sort of presentation after presentation in Ways and Means and Senate Finance on, but that's how counties interact with that program, if that helps.
Thank you, Assemblymember De Silva. I just have one question since we are sort of skating that line. We have a lot of new folks here, and they may not be familiar with the term the net proceeds of minerals. So if you just want to give like a quick overview of what that is so that they're prepared for the rest of the session.
So, yes, for the record, Vincent Guthrow, Executive Director of NACO. So the net proceeds of minerals is actually, it's in the Constitution, and it is a form of property tax for mining operations that operate within the county that they're located. So technically, again, federal land, which is where a lot of mining operations take place, the county cannot assess property taxes or taxes of any kind on federal land. But those operations pay what's considered a form of property tax for the operations and the, I don't want to say profit because there's a lot that goes into it around they get to deduct expenses and investment, and there were some changes made to the net proceeds of minerals that helped fund the state education budget. But essentially, it's a form of property tax on mining operations. There's a whole distribution that goes into it. The state receives some, counties receive some, school districts, cities also, but they do that through the county. So yeah, that's how it works essentially. And as far as percentages, it varies because it depends on, again, the investment and the deductions that the companies can take, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that brief overview. Our next question is from Assemblymember Karras.
Thank you, Chair Considine. My question, and I don't want a huge going into your bill, but I did read over it, your Assembly Bill 114 on county fairs and the Recreation Board. Was that not your bill?
Can I step in? I'm sorry, Assemblymember Karras. Usually we'll wait until we have the bill hearing to have questions in committee on the bills, but happy at this point after the meeting if you wanted to connect with Mr. Guthrow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, great. Thank you so much for your presentation. Next, we will have a presentation from Alexis Hill, Chair of the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners, and Eric Brown, the Washoe County Manager. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning. I am Alexis Hill. I'm the chair of the Washoe County Commission, and I'm thrilled to be before you to talk about all things Washoe County. Next slide, Eric. Thank you. We have a 5-member board of county commissioners, and those are the commissioners. Next slide, please. And we also have a slate of elected officers who fulfill the role required by the legislature. Next slide. And we have a great county executive leadership team led by County Manager Brown, who you'll hear from in just a few minutes here. Next slide. And just to be clear, we are a strong manager form of government, so Manager Brown handles all the day-to-day operations of the county. And here are our values and our strategic objectives. I like to say that Washoe County is the quality of life organization for our region, and so you'll hear a few of the items that we're working on. And regional governance. We have general improvement districts in Gerlach, Incline Village, Palomino Valley, Sun Valley, Verdi. The public health district lies within Washoe County. Washoe County School District is a separate agency, but is also a regional jurisdiction, and then the fire protection districts. And so now I will kick it over to Manager Brown to go into our operations of Washoe County.
Good morning. Is that on? There you go. Good morning, Madam Chair, and to the committee. My name is Eric Brown. I am the Washoe County Manager. It's my pleasure to be here with you this morning and with the chair. So Washoe County is a fairly large geographic county, over 6,300 square miles. Population, this slide is actually dated. It's over 510,000 at this point. And you can see the per capita income and median household incomes. One thing of note is we put the rent on there because that is a major issue in our region, is housing affordability. $1,500 is the median gross rent. It's hard to find an apartment in Washoe County these days. 1-bedroom apartment, I know, because I have a 28-year-old who's looking for less than $1,500. About 10% of our population is in poverty. You can see about 223,000 housing units. The persons per household about 2.5, and we have a healthy veterans community in Washoe County as well. You can see the age distribution on this slide. I'd point out that about 18% of our residents are seniors. That's above the national average, and it's growing. As we'll speak to later, seniors are a major part of our focus in terms of our strategic plan. And then race and ethnicity, we are an increasingly diverse community as well. As Washoe County grows, we're seeing an increase in diversity, which is leading us to also focus on things like language access in our strategic plan, so that we're communicating with folks for whom English is not their first language. We'll talk a little bit about that later also. Organizational profile, there are 24 departments in Washoe County, a little over 3,100 employees, about just under 500 buildings we maintain with a value of just under $1 billion for those facilities. So we have a lot going on. Our budget for 2025, $1.16 billion. Just about half of that is in the general fund. And I'd point out, as Vincent, the second thing I would point out is that we have about $153 million in capital projects that are going on. With the growth in the county, it's putting a lot of demand on our need for additional facilities or expanding facilities, doing things in our safety net organization, our parks, et cetera. On the revenue side, our property taxes, as Vincent mentioned earlier, are our largest source of revenue for the county. It's also, as he said, the most stable source of revenue. Second would be, if you go down the list, you can see consolidated taxes at $160 million. They are more volatile than our property tax distributions historically, and right now, I think all of the counties in northern Nevada are seeing a flattening of C-tax, of consolidated taxes, which is causing us to take a hard look at our expenses going forward. The general fund, in terms of expenses, you can see employee costs, salaries, wages, benefits are really the majority of where we spend our money. We are, I believe, the 5th largest employer in Washoe County with those 3,100 employees. But you can see that the majority of that is salaries and wages and benefits. Vincent talked about the regional services. This is a list of all of the regional services that we provide in Washoe County. The Washoe County, I should call it the Northern Nevada Public Health District, formerly known as the Washoe County Health District, includes our air quality management. They have also clinics and healthcare providers, and they do a lot of things under a separate board of directors from the Board of County Commissioners. But you can see the list is quite extensive, and a lot of it is really focused on, again, providing safety net services. In terms of local services, these are services that are within the unincorporated Washoe County. Business licensing, building and safety services, et cetera, these are the things that we focus on. In many cases, our sister jurisdictions in Reno and Sparks, for instance, have their own similar services for things like fire protection or road maintenance, that kind of thing. My last slide before handing it back over to the chair, in terms of connecting the community, we have made a concerted effort to do a better job or improve our ability to interact with our citizens and encourage them to participate in local government. By that I mean we encourage them to get involved in the boards and commissions that are in Washoe County. One of the ways we've done that is about 3 years ago we instituted a leadership academy, which is basically designed to educate local community residents on how the county works, how county government works. It's 8 days over 8 months, and each day they go visit a sector of the county's departments, might be courts one week, might be law enforcement the next week, to learn how these institutions work. We also have stepped up our citizens advisory boards and our public outreach opportunities. We conducted over 74 meetings in 2024. You can see the CAB meetings were the majority of that, and we operate a call center, which we call Washoe 311, which serves as an information tip line for local residents. You want to find out how to get your pet chipped, or where do you go to take care of your yard waste. You call 311 and they can help with that. Last slide, I'm sorry, I talked about language access before. This has been a big focus for the county going forward. We recently, at the end of the year, launched Wordly, which is an AI app that allows for translation of various county meetings. We're actually using it in our Board of County Commission meetings now. If you come into chambers, there's a monitor. If you're hearing challenged, or again, if English is not your first language, it will translate it for you into one of many languages. There's also an app that people can view on their phone. So just an example of the kinds of things we're doing to try to expand our ability to communicate with our community. Okay, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Washoe County has been a leader in the state for addressing homelessness. We're very proud of the programs that we've created, so I'll go through some of those. But just to give you an idea, we are being recognized nationally for reducing homelessness on the street by 40%. That doesn't mean that homelessness has not increased in Washoe County. Certainly, you heard the manager talk about the increase in rent. We're seeing seniors hit very hard by this, and we are addressing this directly as well. But I wanted to just chat about the great work that we're doing. Next slide, please. Our services that we are helping with at the shelter are behavioral health, case management. We have one case manager per 30 folks in the shelter. Really proud of that work because that's how we're getting people housed. Next slide, please. And we have, just to give you an idea of how we're doing this was a regional effort using CARES dollars and ARPA funds to create the CARES campus shelter. And we have housed nearly 400 people in permanent housing. The issue is there's not enough of it. And once folks get into housing, we need to follow them. Many people do not have a mother to help them through that next stage of their lives. So we're finding that the case management after they leave the shelter is essential, and that's something that we are trying to address through a pilot project where we're seeing 96% of folks who are case managed after they're housed are staying in housing. So we know it works. We just need to figure out how to fund it. Next slide, please. And we are trying to meet folks where they're at with homeless services. We have a safe camp, so if you don't want to be in a congregate setting, we have little pods that you can stay in. Our place, which is at the NAM campus, which the state, thank you to all of you who have helped us be on that campus. And we have helped families and women, and there's a lot of success stories coming out of that. And coming up in April, we have a 50-bed permanent supportive housing shelter online at the CARES campus because of all of you as well through the Home Means Nevada program. So thank you very much. And now I'll address some of our priority items that we're looking at. Roads and stormwater. As you can imagine, the county functions that do not have dedicated revenue sources do not get the attention. So these are two programs that we are trying to focus on and find dedicated funding sources for. Our stormwater scores are receiving a D. We keep a scorecard at Washoe County, and our roads receive a C. The rest of our services have upped their grades to B's and A's, park services and our buildings. So we have some work to do on that. As you heard from the manager, our senior population has grown substantially, and our homeless seniors, it's devastating. These are people who worked in our community, who are caregivers for their spouses, who do not make enough money to live in dignity. And this is a real problem we're seeing across the country, but certainly in Washoe County, since we've seen the rental assistance dry up. We are seeing seniors land in our CARES campus. This is unacceptable. We must do something about it. So we are looking to figure out how we can do that. Next slide. Thank you. And one more thing on our senior population. Our Homemaker program, which is an opportunity for seniors to age in place at their home, it has grown by 58%. Our congregate meals that we provide to seniors has grown by 26%. So it just shows the true need for these programs in Washoe County. We want to highlight our sequential intercept model, which is just another way of saying, how do we ensure that people who have mental illness, who are not at risk to community members, who perhaps end up in a jail, are supported by Washoe County and do not end up in the jail when they could be great members of our community if we provide them the mental health care they need. The biggest joke, which is not a joke, is that our jail is the biggest mental health care facility in the region, and we want to do something about that. So we've adopted this model, and we have been moving folks to competency court. We have seen that 49% of folks who we have moved from the jail to mental health care services. These are offenders that we do not think will harm the public. This is being done very carefully and very astutely by our DA's office. They understand that they don't want to just release folks out, but they are getting mental health care services. And we have saved in the last year $3 million on people not going directly into the jail. And this is a pilot program, so we have just started. So it's very exciting to see how we can support these folks. And the next thing that we want to talk about is Washoe County Behavioral Health Facility. You all provided us $14 million for the capital program for that. We will have 92 pediatric beds for children who are have mental health care issues, and we are really excited to get that open, I think in 2027. And our next big issue that we're looking at that I highlighted before is that dignity housing, how to ensure that we get folks who have lived in our community, supported all of us, been the backbone of our community, and just don't make enough money or have a mental health care issue or don't have a social safety net. How do we get them housed? So our county commission had a great discussion about this at our strategic planning retreat, and we are trying to find solutions on how to move that forward. And I'll kick it back to Manager Brown.
So, in conclusion, our key priorities are to continue to collaborate with our regional partners and our sister and brother jurisdictions in Reno and Sparks, because we learned, certainly during the pandemic, we're much better when we work together than if we try to do things individually. Fiscal responsibility, as I mentioned, C-tax revenues have been flat for the last 7 or 8 months. And that means we need to really focus on what we can control, which is our expenses and figuring out how to reallocate resources without having to cut services and or affect our employees. And then community engagement. We're using a lot of different tools to do that. I do want to mention that the region is going to be completing this year in the fall a regional computer-aided dispatch center, so that all of our fire and emergency response agencies are being dispatched on the same platform. This has never happened in Washoe County before. It gives us the ability to significantly reduce response times by routing the nearest ambulance or piece of fire equipment to a specific incident. Okay. We will take questions if there are any.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. Committee members, if you have questions, get it down. We are going to start with Assemblymember De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again for your presentation, Commissioner and Mr. Brown. Just two really quick questions. So one, I know that Washoe has been receiving national attention, positive national attention, in how it's been addressing the homelessness issue in the area. So my first question is, what's been the relationship with the two municipalities in the area, Reno and Sparks, in having a partnership in working on this issue? And then number two, another issue that has been receiving some national attention is the safety and security of our airports. I know that the county does have a role in ensuring that we have a safe airport that we all utilize in traversing to Carson City. So my question is, what are some of the goals in making sure that the airport is a safe airport in this state? Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm hoping Manager Brown can add to this if I miss anything. But at first, when we saw the COVID funding come in, we as a region saw that our homeless population had doubled, and Reno was operating the shelter, and Reno was the lead of the continuum of care through the federal government. We at Washoe County dug in, realized, okay, we have the indigent service fund through the state. We also have the caseworkers and the expertise to do this work. So it took some time. I think it took about 6 months for us to work with Sparks and Reno to build up some trust to take over the continuum of care, because obviously we would receive the bulk of that funding. But really the model is that you have one agency in charge and the other agency support. So the idea was, when we came together with Reno and Sparks, is we will take care of the homeless population and work to get them housed. Will you, Reno and Sparks, help us build that affordable housing? It's just, and I think that they've done, commendable efforts since then to do that. It's just not enough, and not enough money to do that. But that is how we look at our partnership. We see the county's role is 0 to 30 AMI, and the cities are 30 plus AMI housing, and we're trying to work on that. But we have not been able to build more permanent supportive housing because it's so expensive to build. It's almost like hospital level type of housing. And so that is what the county is now focusing on, because we don't want folks to stay in the shelter forever. And your next question on the airport, we have a separate airport board. The county has 2 appointees as well as the cities, and they are investing $1 billion in the airport. I think maybe even more since inflation, in expanding the terminals, ensuring we get more direct flights to Washoe County, and certainly in public safety. I cannot speak to the specifics, but I can get you in touch with Darren, the airport director, and make sure you get that information. Manager Brown, do you have anything to add? Nope. Okay.
Thank you, Assemblymember De Silva. Our next question is from Vice Chair Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both for being here today, and thank you for the presentation. I love getting the numbers and the details. One of the questions that is pretty much on a lot of our minds these days are the inclement weathers, and obviously we all saw the terrible tragedy next door in our state of the next state over. Can't even get that word out. Are there strategies that the county's doing in terms of either enhancing the infrastructure or educating the communities on issues around fire? And I know Manager Brown touched on a little earlier about the response time for ambulance and fire trucks, but in terms of, knowing that this is kind of going to be like an annual issues, what are some of the strategic things that the county is doing around fire safety, inclement weathers, and some of the response that obviously folks around the country are dealing with?
Well, thank you for the question. Washoe County, we have a separate fire board and a separate tax that our constituents pay for fire services in unincorporated Washoe County, which is really where many of the fires start, because these are folks who live in the WUI, and it's Truckee Meadows Fire District that we are responsible for. But we work very closely with Reno and Sparks, and your question couldn't have better timing, because we're meeting tomorrow morning as a region, Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. We're having a concurrent meeting to discuss fire services, emergency services, if there's opportunities to better collaborate, better fund these services. I will say that we did a wonderful job on the Davis fire. Our chief says that was our LA fire. We had a better luck with the winds. They were not as bad as they had projected them to be, but that fire was looking to get into the urban part of Washoe County on the third day of that fire, and thank goodness it did not. But our regional partners stood up and came to our aid. Washoe County, we were not doing it alone. Reno and Sparks, and then all sorts of adjacent fire districts came through to help us, as well as oh my gosh, I just forgot their name. Division of Forestry. Thank you very much. So we're trying to work through that as a region, but certainly there's never enough money, especially when you're looking at where we live and the expanding development that we have in Washoe County, going into the areas that typically have these fires, plus add climate change to fight these things. So we're looking at home hardening. We're looking at, we just received a grant to do additional fire mitigation in parts of the community that we know need this support. But Manager Brown, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, in addition to what the chair has shared with you, you should know that Washoe County has a long history of superior planning with regards to emergency management. We have one of the we're one of the only counties to have a fully accredited emergency management organization, and that isn't just the county. That's all the regional agencies, fire, RIMSA, etc. So they meet on a regular basis to do trainings to model situations, incidents that could occur in the future, whether it's fires, floods, earthquakes, that kind of thing. It is a real strength, I think, in terms of how the county operates that. The second thing I would say to you is our emergency manager, Kelly Echeverria, does an excellent job of outreach with our citizens advisory boards, our HOAs, and she makes the tour of the county on a regular basis to talk to them about evacuation planning, what they can do to protect their properties, to make sure that they're clearing the brush away and those kinds of things responsibly, where they can go in terms of resources, if they need resources to help them with those tasks. So it is an ongoing challenge, but I think as the region demonstrated in the Davis fire, we're well positioned to, we can't control Mother Nature, but we're well positioned to respond appropriately.
Quick follow-up, Chair. So I would love to hear what the Truckee district has in terms of strategic planning and what they're doing and all the innovation behind it. So if we could get some sort of update from this committee, I would really appreciate that. And thank you for all your work in making sure that we're keeping all of our residents safe.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nguyen. Our next question is from Assembly Member DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Really glad to hear about the consolidated emergency response. That's a long time coming and very needed. My question goes back to your organizational profile slide where you had indicated 493 buildings. Does that include the school districts, the fire districts, or is that just what the county manages?
Those are.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. For the record, County
If I
Manager
could get
Eric
your
Brown.
naming. Thank you.
Those are similar. Those are just the county facilities. That does not include the school district.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member DeLong. Our next question is from Assembly Member Jackson.
Hey, good morning. So I know you guys provided 400 permanent housing. What type of incomes do that consist of the people that were housed, of those 400 individuals?
These are folks who are mainly living off of Social Security, and so very, very low income people. So we are working with the Reno Housing Authority. I hope that they'll be giving you some insights about their work to get them housing vouchers. There's just not enough vouchers. I'm just allocated through our last ARPA contributions a way to fill that gap. So getting folks who are on the list for the vouchers through the Reno Housing Authority housed before the vouchers are ready, and then once the voucher is ready, they can stay housed. We're doing that as a 2-year pilot. We can't get everyone housed in that time, but if there are folks waiting on that housing list, why are they in the shelter? They're ready to go. So we're trying to be creative with the dollars that we have, but it's the very low income residents that we are serving.
And if I can remind you to please state your name for the record. before we
Alexis
start.
Hill, I apologize.
And you may have answered this when you spoke to Assembly Member De Silva, but are there any plans for affordable housing for all incomes?
For the record, County Manager Eric Brown. The county's focus right now will continue to be on the lower end of the market, because that is what we're having the most difficulty with as we try to move folks out of our shelters into permanent housing. However, as the chair mentioned earlier, the city of Reno and the city of Sparks have been tasked with focusing on other aspects of affordable or workforce housing. I will say to you that the county is actively in discussions with some developers about potential utilization of county parcels that we're not using and making those parcels available for affordable housing going forward. So it's the focus is on the lower end of the scale, but not exclusively, and working with our partners in Reno and Sparks to make sure that the other aspects of the housing market are served also.
Is there any data on the average income?
Yes, for the record, Eric Brown, Assembly member, I'd be happy to share some information with you. There's, in fact, we just gave a presentation to our board on the 28th with an overview of the income levels and housing options and availability. I'd be happy to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Jackson. And take a point to talk about. I know you've spoken a lot about the higher percentage of seniors, also connecting that to doing a lot of thoughtful ways of making sure that seniors can stay housed. I know that you're talking about affordable housing for both workforce, but also for a lower percentage of AMI. And I'm wondering if kind of what you're seeing through all of this is you have seniors right now that are on fixed incomes that effectively are in affordable housing, but as costs go up and their income stays the same, they're actually dropping out of the affordable housing that they're currently in. And it sounds to me like that's where those vouchers are coming in. But if there's like a conversation about a long-term strategy, because I think our whole state is facing the silver tsunami of not only our aging population, but also a lot of folks that are coming from other parts of the country moving here because of our low tax rates.
Alexis Hill for the record. Yes, Madam Chair, that is true. And we are also finding that there are seniors who do have savings that are being priced out of housing that, like you said, landlords must fix up their properties and they're increasing the rent, or perhaps there's predatory, issues with that too. And there's nonprofits who are stepping up into that space, but there's just not enough funding, and sadly they're coming to the county now.
Thank you. Committee members, Assembly Member Gallant.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of affordable housing, creating more available housing is always a good strategy in order to drop prices. And one of the things that I think can be very cumbersome, and I don't know about Washoe because I'm down in Clark, is the permit process, right? There's lots of delays. It can be very confusing. It doesn't seem like there's, collaboration and, oh, cool, we're doing a project. Let's all work together. So have you guys taken a look at your building permit process and maybe seen some ways that you could streamline and make it faster? Because then that lowers the cost of building those properties. And then also we get those properties sooner so that we can have housing for our constituents.
Alexis Hill for the record. We have been working very hard on our development code in the last 4 years. We quickly realized we were not allowing accessory dwelling units or tiny homes by right. We changed that very quickly. Then we issued a package to allow higher densities and heights in portions of Washoe County. We're now on package 2.5A because these housing discussions on a local level are really difficult. People put most of their income into their home, and if they feel threatened that the county is allowing fourplexes by right or higher densities next to them when they had perceived their property to be a rural in nature location, there are fights about it, obviously. So we are trying to use the community engagement. We are trying not to boil over the water so people, step away and do not want to see these changes. But that will, I think it went to the Planning Commission last night, and I don't know the outcome. I should have checked that out for 2.5A, but it will come to the County Commission, and then we'll be looking at 2.5B, which is even more controversial housing packages, but making it easier for the housing that we want to see in Washoe County. And I will say, I've seen the city of Reno do the same thing, and the city of Sparks. We are all trying to streamline and see how we can support that type of housing, because when I grew up in Sparks, you could work at the casino, both parents, and buy a home. And it's devastating that the biggest asset I would say that Washoe County used to have is our affordability, and that is no longer in place. And so we want to make that change, and we're trying to see what we can do on a local level. Do you have anything to add, Manager Brown?
For the record, County Manager Eric Brown. Yeah, the other thing I would offer is we are in the process of looking at streamlining the process that builders have to go through to get their projects fund or approved. We are not there yet, but I will tell you we are having the candid discussions about the fact that maybe for some types of housing, anything below 60 AMI or 30 AMI, there's a different process that allows you to fast track getting your project approved. You still have to get the approvals. We don't waive those things. Those are things that we are seriously pursuing, not only in unincorporated Washoe County, but we're having those discussions with Reno and Sparks also.
Two things. Thank you, Chair. North Las Vegas has worked on streamlining their process, so sometimes it's better to copy the wheel than reinvent it. So maybe reach out to them. There, he's sitting it right there. And then have you had any conversations, because we have our own Nevada company, Boxable, which are creating these tiny homes, and literally once you do the rough end, you can pop them up within an hour. And I'm serious, they're amazing. And so I'm wondering if you guys are having any conversations with Boxable or maybe companies like them as well.
For the record, County Manager Eric Brown, we're very familiar with Boxable. When they were first getting started, we were shopping for the right modular home to put in our safe camp. Unfortunately, at that time, they weren't ready for what we needed, so we went in a different direction. But I know that we continue conversations with them.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gallant. Assemblymember Gurr.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. In all the discussions about development and everything else, I don't hear talk about water. What's your water availability in Washoe County and Reno Sparks for all the development that's planned and looked at for future?
Alexis Hill for the record. I sit on the Truckee Meadows Water Authority Board, and we have a really robust plan for water for the region. And we have made an agreement of water usage from both Lake Tahoe and different reservoirs around that feed into the Truckee River, working with the Pyramid Lake Tribe to ensure that we have a plan for water. The biggest issue for us is not the water issue, because we are very fortunate to have a great amount of water through those agreements and Lake Tahoe. The biggest issue for us is sewer capacity. We are aggressively looking at purple piping projects and also seeing how we can support sewer water to be treated and eventually consumed as water as well. So Reno and Tumwa and the city of Sparks are working on those agreements. We've done a lot of studies. We received a giant grant from the Department of Reclamation to see how we can better treat our sewer water and use it for the future of our community. We tour California communities who are allowed to put their effluent into the ocean. We have no ocean. We're a closed basin system, so we have to get creative in that way, and there's a lot of work being done region-wide on that.
That sounds really good. Ottumwa, do you have the water rights out of those things? Are they already allocated and you have the water to do the developments that are there? I
Yeah.
mean, you might have a big pond of water sitting there, but do you have the right to use the water? And another follow-up is, the sewer part of it is concerning. Do you have any trouble in the development when the builders come in and have to, what are your basic, I guess I'm gonna ask it another way. What are your basic costs before you go in the ground with a house, as far as permit fees with the county and the city?
Alexis Hill, for the record, yes, Truckee Meadows Water Authority does have the rights, and we are continuing to buy water rights where we can, because the board has directed that we need to make sure that we are planning for the future and not for today. As far as the cost of, to build in Washoe County, I don't have that number for you. Manager Brown, do you have that? But we can get that for you and send that over. And it is expensive per door, depending on what you're buying. And so we're trying to see how we can support that growth and balance that growth to also ensure quality of life with our community.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gurr. Our next question is from Assemblymember Flanagan.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question for you has to do with the Citizens Advisory Councils or boards that you mentioned. I'm curious to know how many you have, like how they're structured. Are they appointed by the various commissioners that sit on the board, and how you interact with them in terms of how you're making these decisions? I do have a question unrelated to that as well, but I'll wait to ask that. So how they impact your development and decision process.
Sure. For the record, County Manager Eric Brown. So Washoe County currently has 8 Citizens Advisory Boards. The Citizens Advisory Boards are appointed by the commissioners, so the commissioner in the district that the cab is located in. We're in the process of updating the bylaws and the boundaries of these cabs, because they've been around for decades, and we've taken direction from both the community and the commissioners as to how they would like to see the cabs move forward. But they're basically an opportunity for citizens to hear content from the county on things that are important to them. As an example, generally the public safety folks, our sheriff and our fire folks, will go make a report on this month's statistics in this community. In addition, if there are other items, let's say there are water rights issues that come up in a community, we will invite TUMWA or whoever the relevant agency is to come make presentations to the Citizens Advisory Boards, and then provide feedback. It also allows, I think, the commissioners to have a forum for listening to their communities that's outside of the Board of County Commission. So they've been very popular. They've been around for quite a while, and it's been a very effective way of conducting outreach to the communities.
May I add something, Manager Brown? And as far as development is concerned, we found the best way, we've jiggered the way that we talk to the community about development, because before, every development within a boundary line would go to the Citizen Advisory Board, and even if it had already been approved by the Planning Commission, the Citizen Advisory Board would weigh in and it would be too late by then. The timing just never was quite working out correctly. So our staff came up with a great idea to require neighborhood meetings prior to a developer submitting a permit. So they have to notice within a general area, and then they bring together community members both on Zoom and in person to hear their input on a particular development. So then the developer hopefully can listen to the community, and the planner is supposed to keep them, hold them accountable for that. And then they, bring together that feedback, and hopefully they then have a better development that is answering the community needs as well. So that's another new thing that we have been doing over the last 2 years that we've seen great results on.
Please remember to state your name for the record. Thank you.
For the record, County Manager Eric Brown. And to pile on that a little bit, we actually created an online portal as a repository for all of the development meetings that she's referring to. So if there's a development meeting tonight, it's recorded. Any comments or input that the public provided the developer for consideration before they move forward, that gets documented in this portal. So if you were not able to attend the meeting and you want to know what happened, what did the developer say they were going to do, what was the public's response, it's all in the hub, we call it, which is the portal that allows citizens to participate virtually, if you will, in that process. The last thing is citizens can sign up to receive notices that there are going to be meetings in your community or in other communities. Usually we have some people who want to know when all the development meetings are happening anywhere in the county. So again, we're doing everything we can to expand the reach of our ability to communicate with folks on a timely basis so that they can participate in the process.
Thank you both for the answers to those questions. On a separate note that deals with housing a little bit and the homeless population, I was wondering how youth play into your homeless considerations, or what youth programs you might have that keep them moving forward.
Alexis Hill, for the record, I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
Yes, I'm curious about are youth affected by your homeless situation? In short answer.
Alexis Hill, for the record. Yes, they are, and we have nonprofits that are actually dealing with youth homelessness. The Eddie Project is one of our nonprofit partners that works directly with youth and homelessness, and are doing incredible work. They are actually building transitional housing for youth, and so that's not necessarily what the county does, but we do find a place for youth that need a bed if it's not within a county facility. But our Place Shelter does shelter families who are experiencing homelessness. If you're a family in Washoe County, if you have children in Washoe County and you're experiencing homelessness, we will find a place for you. Do you want to add to that, Manager Brown?
Yeah, and the Eddie House, which she referred to, is really the primary youth shelter in our region, but there are many others, and that is the role that the Continuum of Care, the COC, plays, which is a consortium of support agencies who are dealing with safety net populations, homeless populations, and through that, they can identify beds that are available throughout the community. Some are in private homes, some might be in faith-based group facilities, and that's a large part of the work that they do to make sure that a suitable and appropriate bed is available for youth as needed.
Just one other question. You had numbers for seniors and for people underage or 65 and older mostly, but are there any numbers on how many youth in the community, or is it not as prevalent a problem here?
That's a great, for the record, County Manager Eric Brown, that's a great question. I don't have an answer for that question, but I can look into it for you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Flanagan. I have hopefully a couple of quick questions. One of them is going back to the beginning of the presentation. County Manager, you had mentioned as far as revenue sources, fines and forfeitures of about $8 million. Could you explain to me what the forfeitures mean? And if you don't have that number, but if you could send it to me to the committee about how much in forfeitures at that $8 million there are.
Oh, I would have to get back. I'm sorry. For the record, County Manager Eric Brown, I'd have to get back to you on how much of that is specifically forfeitures. But the majority of that would be properties that would have to be where those revenues are generated. But I will come back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Get our treasurer to summarize that for you.
And then my other question is, it shows that you have 3 operating shelters with a total operating cost of almost $42 million. Is there a way to get the breakdown of the cost per shelter? If you could send that to the committee.
For the record, County Manager Eric Brown, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you very much. And I believe we have one follow-up question from Assemblymember Flanagan.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understand what special revenue funds are when you were talking about your cost structure, and Assemblymember Chair Considine's question made me think about that. So the special revenue funds.
Special revenue funds are funds that are earmarked for a specific purpose. So, for instance, we have a golf course special revenue fund. So it's the fees that are generated by the golf courses that go back into it. There are other categories. I just happen to be most familiar with that one.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the committee members? Okay, great. Thank you so much for your presentation and your great answers. Appreciate your time. Thank you. We will now move to public comment. As a reminder, members of the public can provide public comment in person or telephonically and may submit public comment up to 24 hours after the meeting. Instructions for providing public comment can be found on the agenda. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 888-475-4499. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 868-8271. 9945, and then press pound or hashtag when prompted for a participant ID. Each person will have 2 minutes to provide testimony. You may also submit written public comment to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. Please remember to clearly state your name and spell your name for the record. Is there any public comment in Carson City? Seeing none, we'll move to Las Vegas. Is there any public comment in Las Vegas? Don't see anyone there. And AVH, is there anyone on the phone line for public comment?
Thank you, Chair. To provide public comment, please press *9 to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Vice Chair and members of the committee. Sorry, I'm a little bit breathy. I'm working out. This is Dora Martinez, DORAMARTINEZ. I want to thank all of you and the people who, Commissioner Alexis Hill, I don't know if they told you, but one of the things, the program they do is the RTC or Lyft vouchers and senior taxi bucks. And a lot of people that I helped are eligible for that because they are disabled and seniors. And so we thank them for that. Our only ask is that hopefully moving forward, we can make those taxi bucks and Lyft vouchers roll to the next month if they're not used for the prior month, knowing that a lot of the taxi fare and Lyft and Uber share ride are getting expensive due to the inflation. And I want to thank all of you for doing this. I can be anywhere in the world and still participate and hopefully Washoe County commissioners can do the same with the Zoom capability. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your time, and enjoy the weather. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. It's nice to hear from you. Is there anyone else on the public line?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. We have no additional callers at this time.
Thank you very much. The next meeting will be Thursday, February 5th at 8 a.m. in room 3143. That concludes our meeting for today. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.